The sun rose over New Terra Colony, casting long shadows across the dome-shaped buildings. Agent Jisoo Kim stood at her window, watching workers move through the streets below. 6 months had passed since she arrived on Proxima Centauri, the first human settlement beyond our solar system. Her dark skin glistened with sweat in the artificial light that mimicked Earth's sun. Day 182. Jisoo spoke quietly into her recorder. Still no direct evidence linking Captain Park to the smuggling operation. But 3 more Proximan artifacts disappeared from the cultural center last night. She tucked the small device into her pocket and checked her disguise in the mirror. Her FBI badge and gun were hidden in a secret compartment beneath her floor. Here she was not Agent Kim, but simply Jisoo Kim, a civil engineer helping build New Terra's water systems. The colony was humanity's greatest achievement, a city of 50,000 people on a planet 16 light-years from Earth. It was also home to the Proximans, a peaceful species that looked somewhat like tall humans with bluish skin and 4-fingered hands. They had welcomed humans to share their world. At least, that was the official story. Jisoo grabbed her work tablet and headed out. The morning air inside the colony's dome was cool and smelled faintly of recycled oxygen. She nodded to neighbors as she walked toward the central plaza, careful to maintain her cover. "Morning, Jisoo," called Mrs. Lee from her food stall. "Want some breakfast?" "Thanks, but I'm running late," Jisoo replied with a smile. She liked the old woman who made the best noodles in the colony. As she crossed the plaza, Jisoo noticed a group of colonial police officers standing near the government building. Captain Han Park stood in the center, his white skin and blonde hair standing out among his mostly Asian officers. Park had been on Earth's police force before joining the colonial mission. He had won medals for bravery during the Earth Wars 10 years ago. Now, as head of New Terra's security, his word was practically law. Jisoo kept her head down as she passed the group. Her real mission was to investigate reports that Park was smuggling Proximan artifacts back to Earth and mistreating the native people. The Interstellar Federal Bureau feared his actions could damage the fragile peace between humans and the first intelligent aliens they had ever met. "You, engineer," Park's voice rang out across the plaza. Jisoo's heart beat faster, but she kept her face calm as she turned. "Yes, Captain." Park walked toward her, his blue eyes cold. He was tall, with broad shoulders and a perfect uniform. "There's a water pipe leaking near the east gate. See to it." "Of course, sir," she replied. "I'll go right away." Park's eyes lingered on her face for a moment too long. "Make sure you do. We can't have waste in the colony." As Jisoo walked away, she felt his eyes on her back. Did he suspect something? Or was it just his usual dislike of people with dark skin? She had noticed how he treated the few black colonists differently, giving them extra security checks, questioning their work permits, making comments about them fitting in. The east gate was quiet when she arrived. It was one of 4 exits from the main dome, leading to the smaller research domes and the boundary where human territory met Proximan lands. Jisoo quickly found the leaking pipe and began repairs, but her real purpose was to watch the gate. After an hour of work, she saw what she was waiting for. A small transport vehicle pulled up, and Officer Tae-sung stepped out. He was Park's right-hand man, young, eager to please, and probably unaware of his boss's true activities. 2 workers unloaded several crates from the vehicle and carried them through a side door. Jisoo pretended to focus on the pipe but used her tablet to take pictures. The crates had Proximan markings. They were coming from the native zone, not from the human supply ships. "Need any help?" The voice made Jisoo jump. She turned to see Do-hyun Lee standing behind her. Unlike her, Do-hyun's cover was minimal. He was officially an Earth liaison, which gave him reasons to communicate with Earth regularly. In reality, he was her FBI handler. "Just finishing up," she said loudly, then whispered. Park's people brought in more crates from the Proximan zone. Do-hyun nodded slightly. "Good work. Get the pictures to me later. And be careful. Park asked questions about you yesterday." Jisoo felt a chill. What kind of questions? About your background, your qualifications. I fed him the cover story, but he seemed interested. I'll be extra careful, she promised. Later that evening, Jisoo sat in her small apartment, transmitting the day's findings through a secure channel hidden in her personal communication device. She had spent the afternoon in the colony archives, reviewing shipping records. There was a pattern. Every time Proximan artifacts disappeared, a private transport left for Earth the next day. A knock at her door made her quickly shut down the transmission. Jisoo checked the peephole and saw Horin, a friendly neighbor who worked in the colony's medical center. "Come in," Jisoo said, opening the door. Horin entered, looking nervous, her hands twisted together. "I shouldn't be here, but I thought you should know." "Know what?" "They brought in 3 Proximans today, to the secure medical unit. They were injured. It looked like they had been beaten." Jisoo kept her face neutral despite her shock. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you ask questions. You watch things. And..." Horin lowered her voice. "One of them mentioned Captain Park's name before they sedated him." After Horin left, Jisoo paced her small apartment. If Park was now hurting Proximans, not just stealing their artifacts, the situation was worse than the FBI had thought. She needed to get into that medical unit. The next morning, Jisoo headed to work as usual but took a detour past the medical center. The secure unit was in the back, its windows darkened. 2 police officers stood guard at the entrance. "What's happening?" she asked a passing nurse. "Quarantine," the nurse replied shortly. "Some kind of alien virus. Best stay away." Jisoo knew this was a lie. She needed to tell Do-hyun, but as she turned to leave, she saw Captain Park watching her from across the street. Their eyes met, and he began walking toward her. "Engineer Kim," he said when he reached her, "interested in our medical facilities." "Just passing by," she replied. "Is everything okay?" "I heard something about a quarantine." Park's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Nothing for you to worry about. Just some Proximans who got sick after entering human territory without permission. We're helping them." "Of course." "Of course," Jisoo echoed. "That's very kind. We try to be good neighbors." Park stepped closer. "You know, I've been watching you, Jisoo." "May I call you Jisoo?" She nodded, hiding her discomfort. "You're different from other engineers, always looking, asking questions." "I'm just thorough in my work, Captain." Park laughed, a cold sound. "Yes, very thorough. In fact, I'd like to talk more about your work. Join me for dinner tonight at my quarters." It wasn't a request. Jisoo knew refusing would only make him more suspicious. "I'd be honored," she said. Park's quarters were in the government building, a spacious apartment with real Earth furniture, a luxury in the colony. Jisoo arrived exactly on time, wearing the nicest clothes her engineer cover owned. "Welcome," Park said, opening the door. He had changed from his uniform into civilian clothes, but somehow still looked just as intimidating. "Come in." The apartment was immaculate, with certificates and medals displayed on one wall. A large window overlooked the plaza where colonists were gathering for some evening entertainment. "Wine," Park offered. "Real Earth wine, not the stuff they make here." "Thank you." Jisoo accepted the glass, pretending to sip. "You know," Park said, watching her closely, "I checked your background. Top of your class at Seoul Engineering Institute. Impressive." "I worked hard," she replied, knowing Do-hyun had created these records carefully. "Yes, hard work is important." Park walked to the window. "That's why I value my position here. I worked hard to protect Earth during the wars. Now I protect humanity's future on this new world." "A noble goal," Jisoo said carefully. Park turned to face her. "But some people don't understand what's necessary for protection. The Proximans are not like us, Jisoo. They may look similar, but they're aliens. Their artifacts, their culture, it's all dangerous to human development." Ji-soo felt a chill as she realized where this conversation was heading. Is that why some artifacts have gone missing? For protection. Park's eyes narrowed. You notice a lot for an engineer. Just curious about our neighbors, she said lightly. Curiosity can be dangerous. Park moved closer, especially when it leads people to ask the wrong questions to the wrong people. Ji-soo knew then that her cover was in danger. Park suspected something. She needed to end this dinner and warn Do-hyun. Captain, The building suddenly shook with a distant explosion. Park rushed to the window. What was that? Ji-soo asked, joining him. In the distance, smoke rose from the direction of the east gate, where she had seen the crates being unloaded. Park's communicator buzzed. Sir, came Officer Sung's voice. There's been an explosion at storage facility, possible proximate terrorist action. Secure the scene. I'm coming now. Park grabbed his uniform jacket. Duty calls, Ms. Kim. We'll continue our conversation another time. As soon as Park left, Ji-soo slipped out and headed toward her apartment. She needed to contact Do-hyun immediately. The explosion was no coincidence. Either someone had discovered the smuggled artifacts, or Park had arranged the blast himself to cover his tracks. Either way, her investigation had just become much more dangerous. Ji-soo rushed through the dimly lit streets of New Terra Colony. The emergency sirens wailed overhead as colonists emerged from their homes, faces filled with worry. Smoke rose from the East Gate area, painting the artificial sky with dark clouds. She needed to reach her apartment. If Captain Park was setting up a distraction, it could mean he knew more than he was letting on. Her secure communication device was hidden there, and she had to warn Do-hyun. As she turned down her street, Ji-soo noticed two colonial police officers standing near her building. They weren't facing her direction, but their presence made her stop. Something was wrong. Ji-soo ducked into a narrow alley and took a different route, circling around to the back of her apartment building. The maintenance ladder she had noted during her first week, always good to know escape routes, provided access to the roof. From there, she could look down at her apartment's small balcony. What she saw confirmed her fears. The door to her apartment was open, and lights flickered inside. Shadows moved across the walls as people searched her home. They're looking for evidence, she whispered to herself. Had Park figured out who she really was? Ji-soo climbed down to the level below her apartment and slipped into the home of an elderly couple she knew was visiting the agricultural dome this week. From there, she used her engineer's access card to enter the building's utility passages. These narrow corridors ran between apartments, carrying water pipes and electrical wires. The passage beside her apartment had a small vent. Ji-soo pressed her ear against it and listened. Nothing here, sir, said a male voice she recognized as Officer Sung's. Keep looking, came Park's cold reply. Check under the floorboards, inside the furniture. She's hiding something. Ji-soo's heart raced. Her FBI badge and gun were hidden in a special compartment beneath the bathroom floor. It was designed to be undetectable to standard colonial scanners. But if they tore up the floor... Sir, the explosion at the East Gate, they need you there, said Sung. This is more important, Park snapped. That engineer is not who she claims to be. There was a pause, then the sound of furniture being moved. Sir, look at this, Sung said, excitement in his voice. Ji-soo held her breath. Had they found her hiding place? What is it? Asked Park. These crystals. They're Proximan memory stones, the same type that went missing from the cultural center. Ji-soo's blood ran cold. She didn't have any Proximan artifacts. Someone had planted them. Well, Park said, his voice smooth with satisfaction. It seems our engineer is a thief. Put out an alert. Ji-soo Kim is to be arrested on sight. Ji-soo backed away from the vent. Park was framing her. He must have suspected she was investigating him and decided to turn the tables. Now she was the criminal, and her cover was blown. She needed to find Do-hyun. Moving through the utility passages, Jisoo made her way to the central plaza. The colony's founding day celebration was scheduled for tomorrow, and workers were setting up decorations despite the chaos from the explosion. The annual event marked the anniversary of humanity's arrival on Proxima Centauri. It would bring most colonists to the plaza, a perfect time for a public arrest. Jisoo kept her head down as she moved through the growing crowd. Colonial police officers were everywhere, speaking into their communicators. She caught fragments of conversation. They were looking for her. The communications center was on the far side of the plaza. Do-hyun sometimes worked there, using his position as Earth liaison to send reports back to FBI headquarters. Jisoo circled around, using the festival preparations as cover. She spotted Do-hyun leaving the communications building, his face tense. She needed to reach him without being seen. Jisoo grabbed a worker's cap from an unattended table and pulled it low over her face. As Do-hyun passed near a food stall, Jisoo bumped into him. East Maintenance Tunnel. 20 minutes, she whispered, then kept walking. 20 minutes later, Jisoo waited in the darkness of the maintenance tunnel that ran beneath the eastern section of the colony. The tunnel was rarely used except by repair crews, with dim emergency lights casting long shadows along its length. She heard footsteps and tensed, ready to run, but relaxed when Do-hyun's familiar figure appeared. "What happened?" he asked, his voice low. "The police are looking for you. They're saying you stole Proximan artifacts." "Park is framing me," Jisoo said. "He planted those crystals in my apartment. He suspects I'm not who I say I am." Do-hyun's face grew serious. "This is bad. If he's willing to frame you, it means he's desperate. Maybe we're closer to uncovering his operation than we thought." "Did you learn anything about the explosion?" Do-hyun nodded. "It was at a storage facility where they keep incoming shipments. Early reports say it was a Proximan attack, but I don't believe it. The timing is too convenient. Park is setting up a conflict," Jisoo said. "Frame me for theft. Blame the Proximans for an attack. He's creating enemies to justify whatever he's planning." "We need to contact headquarters," Do-hyun said. "But the communications are being watched. Park has ordered all outgoing messages to be screened, claiming security concerns after the explosion." Jisoo thought quickly. "The emergency beacon in my badge. It will send a direct signal to Earth that can't be intercepted. But it's still in my apartment. Too risky to go back there," Do-hyun warned. "They're watching your place." "Then I need a new plan." Jisoo paced the narrow tunnel. "The founding day celebration is tomorrow. Everyone will be in the plaza. If Park is planning something big, that would be the time." "Agreed," Do-hyun said. "But you can't show your face. They'll arrest you on sight." Jisoo stopped pacing. "Maybe that's exactly what I need to do." "What? Are you crazy?" "Listen," Jisoo said, her mind racing. "Park wants to arrest me publicly. Let him. But first, I need to get proof of what he's doing. And I think I know where to find it." She explained her plan. Park's private office in the security building would have records of his smuggling operation. During the celebration, the building would be minimally staffed, with most officers at the plaza for crowd control. "It's too dangerous," Do-hyun argued. "If you're caught." "I'm already wanted," Jisoo pointed out. "And we need evidence. Real evidence, not planted crystals. I can get into his office using my engineer's access. I'm authorized to check environmental systems in all buildings." Do-hyun reluctantly agreed. "But you'll need somewhere to hide tonight. And a disguise for tomorrow." "I know someone who might help," Jisoo said, thinking of Ho-rin from the medical center. That night, Jisoo stayed hidden in Ho-rin's storage room. The medical worker was nervous but believed Jisoo when she explained that she was being framed. "Those Proximans they brought in," Ho-rin whispered as she brought Jisoo some food. "They're gone now. Officer Sung came and took them away. No medical discharge papers, nothing." "Did you hear where they were taking them?" Jisoo asked. Ho-rin shook her head. But one of the nurses mentioned a research facility outside the main dome, near the border with Proximan territory. This confirmed Jisoo's suspicions. Park wasn't just smuggling artifacts. He was doing something to the Proximans themselves. The next morning, founding day dawned bright, as the colony's artificial lighting system created a perfect sunrise. Jisoo looked at herself in Horin's small mirror. With her hair cut short and dyed a different color, dark glasses, and medical center clothes borrowed from Horin, she hoped she could move through the colony without being recognized immediately. "Be careful," Horin said as Jisoo prepared to leave. "Park is giving a speech at the celebration at noon. Most security will be focused there." Jisoo nodded. "If I'm not back in 3 hours, tell Do-hyun what happened." The colony was buzzing with excitement as Jisoo made her way through the crowded streets. Colorful banners hung between buildings, and the smell of special foods filled the air. Children ran between stalls set up for games and treats. It was hard to believe that beneath this happy celebration, corruption threatened the peace between humans and Proximans. The security building was quiet when Jisoo approached. As expected, most officers were at the plaza. She used her engineer's access card to enter through a side door, claiming she needed to check the air filtration system. The board guard barely looked at her ID before waving her through. Inside, Jisoo moved quickly. She knew the layout from studying colony blueprints. Park's office was on the top floor. Using the service elevator that required her engineer's access, Jisoo reached the upper level without being seen. The hallway was empty. Park's office door had a security panel that required a special code. Jisoo pulled out a small device from her pocket, standard FBI equipment disguised as an engineering tool. It could bypass most colonial security systems. After 30 tense seconds, the door clicked open. Park's office was large and neat, with a view of the plaza below. Jisoo could see crowds gathering for the celebration. In the distance, a stage had been set up where Park would give his speech. She began searching quickly, checking his computer first. It was locked, but her FBI training made short work of the password protection. Jisoo inserted a small drive that would copy all files while she continued searching. In a locked cabinet, Jisoo found what she was looking for, a small notebook with handwritten notes. It contained dates, names, and amounts, records of artifacts sold and profits made. More disturbingly, it listed test subjects with Proximan designations. As Jisoo photographed the pages with her hidden camera, she heard the office door open behind her. "I knew you'd come here," said Captain Park's cold voice. Jisoo turned slowly to find Park standing in the doorway, his gun pointed at her chest. Officer Sung stood behind him, looking surprised at finding Jisoo in their boss's office. "Captain, is this the thief you've been looking for?" Sung asked, not recognizing Jisoo in her disguise. "Indeed it is," Park said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Jisoo Kim, you're under arrest for theft of Proximan cultural property, trespassing in a secure facility, and," his smile widened, "conspiracy against the colony." Jisoo knew she was trapped. But as Park stepped forward to arrest her, she noticed something that gave her hope. The plaza below was filling with not just human colonists, but Proximans too, dozens of them, their tall blue figures moving through the crowd. Whatever Park was planning, it was about to get much more complicated. Applause filled the plaza as Captain Park stepped onto the main stage. He smiled and waved to the crowd, looking every bit the hero the colonists believed him to be. His white uniform gleamed in the bright lights, medals shining on his chest. 10 minutes, Jisoo whispered, looking at her watch. That was all the time they had before the explosives would detonate. She and Officer Sung raced up the stairs from the maintenance tunnels, emerging at the edge of the crowded plaza. The celebration was in full swing, with humans and Proximans enjoying the festivities, unaware of the danger beneath their feet. There, Sung pointed to the main stage where Park was beginning his speech. "How do we get up there?" "The area is guarded." Jisoo scanned the crowd and spotted Do-hyun making his way toward them. "Did you find anything?" Do-hyun asked when he reached them. "Explosives," Jisoo replied quickly. "Set to go off in less than 10 minutes. We need to get on that stage and expose Park now." Do-hyun nodded. "Follow me. I have press credentials as the Earth liaison. I can get us backstage." They pushed through the crowd, moving as fast as they could without drawing attention. On stage, Park was speaking about the colony's achievements and the brave work of the security forces in keeping everyone safe. "Proud to protect all law-abiding citizens of New Terra," Park was saying. "But we must remain vigilant against those who would threaten our peace." Do-hyun led Jisoo and Sung to a side entrance where security personnel checked credentials. He showed his badge and spoke with authority. "These are my assistants," he explained to the guard. "We need to prepare for the Earth government announcement following Captain Park's speech." The guard hesitated, looking at Jisoo carefully. She kept her head down, heart pounding. Had her disguise failed? "I need to check with my supervisor," the guard began. Suddenly, Governor Min approached, heading for the stage entrance. "Governor," Do-hyun called, shifting the guard's attention. "May I have a quick word about the Earth delegation's message?" As the guard turned to see the governor, Jisoo and Sung slipped past him into the backstage area. They could hear Park's voice through the curtain, his speech building toward what would surely be his moment to blame the Proximans after the explosion. "What now?" Sung whispered. Jisoo held up the drive. "We need to connect this to the display system. Can you get us to the control booth?" Sung nodded. "This way." They moved quickly through the backstage area, dodging staff and officials. The booth was at the back of the stage, where technicians controlled the large screen behind the speakers. One technician sat at the controls, focused on maintaining Park's presentation. "Colonial Security," Sung said officially, showing his badge. "We need to check the system." The technician looked confused, but stood up to let them access the controls. Jisoo inserted the drive into the computer and quickly searched for the most damning files. 7 minutes, she whispered to Sung. On stage, Park was shifting to the next part of his speech, his voice growing more serious. "While we celebrate today, I must address some troubling developments," he said. "We have discovered evidence of Proximan involvement in recent thefts and the explosion at the East Gate." Jisoo found what she needed: Park's records of artifact sales, photos of the experimentation facility, and a video of Park himself discussing plans to sabotage the treaty. "Ready," she told Sung. "How do we interrupt him?" Sung asked. Jisoo looked around and saw a microphone on the technician's desk. It was labeled Emergency Override. "With this," she said, grabbing it, "get ready to play the files when I signal." Jisoo stepped closer to the stage, hiding behind the curtain. She could see Park clearly now, his face serious as he fed lies to the colonists. "Just this morning," Park continued, "we arrested a thief who was stealing Proximan artifacts. We believe this person was working with Proximan extremists too." Jisoo stepped out onto the stage, microphone in hand. "That's a lie, Captain Park," her voice boomed through the speakers, cutting him off. The crowd gasped. Park turned, his face showing shock then anger as he recognized Jisoo despite her disguise. "Security," he shouted. "Arrest this woman. She's the thief I was just telling you about." Jisoo stood her ground as security guards moved toward her. "My name is Special Agent Jisoo Kim of the Interstellar Federal Bureau. Captain Park framed me because I was investigating his crimes." The crowd murmured in confusion. Park laughed, trying to appear confident. "This is ridiculous," he said into his microphone. "This woman is delusional. She has no proof of these wild accusations." Jisoo signaled to Sung in the booth. "I have all the proof we need." The large screen behind Park suddenly came to life, showing his private files. The crowd gasped as they saw lists of stolen artifacts with prices and buyers' names. Then came photos of Proximans being held in cells at the secret facility. Park's face went pale. He lunged for Jisoo, but she stepped back, staying just out of reach. "Turn that off," he shouted. But the worst was yet to come. The screen now showed Park himself, recorded in his office, speaking to someone off camera. "Once the explosives go off, we'll blame the Proximans. The treaty will be finished, and humans will demand protection. Protection only we can provide." The crowd erupted in angry shouts. Park looked around wildly, then pulled his gun and pointed it at Jisoo. "Stay back," he yelled. "This is all fake." She doctored those files. Governor Min stepped forward, her face stern. "Captain Park, lower your weapon immediately." "You don't understand," Park said, his voice desperate. "The Proximans are dangerous. We need to control them." Jisoo spoke calmly into her microphone. "Captain, there are explosives in the maintenance tunnels below this plaza, set to go off in." She checked her watch. 5 minutes. You planted them to create fear and turn humans against the Proximans." Park's expression confirmed her words. The crowd began to panic, people pushing to get away from the plaza. "Everyone stay calm," Jisoo shouted. "Colonial security is disarming the devices now." She hoped this was true. Do-hyun had gone to alert the bomb squad the moment they'd entered the backstage area. Park saw his plan crumbling. With a desperate cry, he rushed toward the edge of the stage, pushing people aside as he tried to escape. "Stop him," Jisoo called. Several colonial police officers moved to block Park's path, including some of his own men who now looked at their captain with disbelief and anger. Surrounded, Park turned back toward Jisoo, raising his gun again. "You've ruined everything," he snarled. Before he could fire, a tall blue figure stepped forward from the crowd. It was a Proximan, taller than any human, with 4-fingered hands and wise, ancient eyes. In a swift motion, the Proximan knocked the gun from Park's hand. Park stumbled back, fear replacing anger on his face as more Proximans moved to surround him. They made no aggressive moves, simply stood in silent judgment. "Captain Han Park," Governor Min said, her voice carrying across the now quiet plaza, "you are under arrest for theft, smuggling, false imprisonment, terrorism, and attempted murder." As colonial officers led Park away, Jisoo's mind turned to the explosives. 4 minutes remained. She rushed backstage to find Do-hyun. "The bomb squad is in the tunnels," he told her. "But they're not sure they can disarm all devices in time." "We need to evacuate," Jisoo said. Governor Min had already begun directing people away from the plaza, but in the crowd and confusion, it was slow going. Many Proximans were helping, using their height to guide people towards safe exits. 3 minutes. Jisoo and Do-hyun joined the evacuation efforts, directing people away from the center of the plaza where the support pillars and the explosives were located. 2 minutes. Officer Sung emerged from the maintenance tunnel entrance, his face streaked with sweat. "They've disarmed 3 devices," he reported, "still working on the other 2. 1 minute. Most people had cleared the central plaza, but stragglers remained, children separated from parents, elderly colonists moving slowly, confused visitors unsure which way to go. Jisoo looked at Do-hyun and Sung. Without a word, all 3 ran back toward the danger zone, helping the remaining people move to safety. 30 seconds. The last group, a Proximan family with small children, finally cleared the area. Jisoo, Do-hyun, and Sung turned to run. The ground shook beneath their feet. A muffled boom came from below, followed by a much smaller explosion than planned. One device had detonated, but its power had been partly contained by the bomb squad's work. A section of the plaza floor cracked and sank slightly, but the main supports held. The bomb squad emerged from the tunnels, faces blackened but triumphant. 4 out of 5, their leader reported. Could have been much worse. Later, as medical teams treated minor injuries and repair crews assessed the damage, Jisoo, Do-hyun, and Sung sat together on a bench at the edge of the damaged plaza. What happens now? Sung asked. Park will face trial, Du Hyun said. With the evidence we have, he won't escape justice. And the treaty? Ji-soo asked. The governor just received word from Earth. After today's events, they're fast-tracking it. Humans and Proximans will have equal rights in the colony. Ji-soo smiled, looking across at the groups of humans and Proximans working together to help those affected by the explosion. Then something good came from all this. A week later, Ji-soo stood in the colonial courthouse, her FBI badge openly displayed on her belt. The large room was filled with humans and Proximans alike, all waiting for the preliminary hearing in Park's case to begin. Captain Park sat at the defendant's table, his once pristine uniform replaced by plain clothes, his face pale and angry. When he saw Ji-soo, his eyes narrowed with hate. Governor Min approached Ji-soo before the proceedings began. Agent Kim, on behalf of the colony, I want to thank you for your service. If you hadn't exposed Park's plan, many would have died, and our peace with the Proximans might have been destroyed. I was just doing my job, Ji-soo replied. Well, your job saved us all. The governor smiled. The Earth government has asked if you would consider staying on as our liaison with the Proximans as we implement the treaty. Your experience would be valuable. Ji-soo looked around the courtroom. Officer Sung stood with other colonial police, his posture straighter, proud of his role in stopping his former captain. Du Hyun sat with Earth officials, reviewing documents for the case. Proximans and humans sat side by side, united in their desire for justice. I'd be honored to stay, Ji-soo said. As the judge entered and the room fell silent, Ji-soo took her seat. Today, truth would speak louder than prejudice. Justice would prevail not just for her, but for two species learning to live together in peace. The truth had been exposed, and with it came hope for a better future.